By now, you are no doubt well aware of a new rule adopted by NFL owners this week regarding NFL protests that players can either be on the field during the playing of the national anthem and stand, or they can remain in the locker room, thus not be on the field and not visible during the playing of the anthem. Teams will be fined for players' demonstrations. Now, almost immediately after the announcement of the rule, the NFL Players Association released the following statement. The vote by NFL club CEOs today contradicts the statements made to our player leadership by Commissioner Roger Goodell and the chairman of the NFL's Management Council, John Mara, about the principles, values, and patriotism of our league. That was a portion of that statement. We're very pleased right now to welcome the executive director of the NFLPA, and that is DeMaurice Smith. Dee, thank you very much for taking the time to do this today. So we heard a portion of the statement there, but could you, for our audience, in your own words, explain what your reaction and that of the Players Association is to this new rule?
Well, I think it's multifaceted. I mean, we certainly heard from Roger and John Mara during the season about their desire to make sure that they were going to respect the rights of players to protest and express their voice. When we see a policy like this, I have several takeaways. One, it doesn't appear to be or doesn't appear to have the full support of all of the CEOs who own teams. It punishes not only players who wish to protest, but also could end up punishing players who want to come out and stand and salute the flag. And at the end of the day, it does seem to me that it smacks more of a desire to exert control rather than a desire to actually stand up and support the rights and freedoms that our country was founded on.
Let me go back to the first part of that. What to you is the significance of the fact that while Roger Goodell said that it was unanimous, our reporting suggests there was no official vote taken, and we know for certain that at least two of the owners say they abstained?
Well, I wasn't in the room. I rarely get invited to those meetings. But I think that the takeaways were, A, they clearly chose not to involve the player union and not to involve player leadership in coming up with this rule. And two, the fact that it appears that it was haphazard at best suggests to me that this was more of a desperate attempt by a group of owners to simply, quote unquote, get back to playing football rather than to honestly and with a sense of what America means, to sit down and figure out what's the right thing to do. What I think they did was they sat down and tried to figure out what can we get away with as quickly as possible.
Well, I want to go back to another thing you said about not having been in the room. There were meetings with owners and players during the course of last year during the season. So what role would you say the players or the Players Association had in the rule that was ultimately adopted?
Nothing.
Simple as that. Okay.
Well, every now and then lawyers have very, short words to say. So
Understood. Understood. Let me ask you this then. When did you first hear of it? Was there communication between you and Roger Goodell or you and any of the members of the Owners Council when this was adopted before it was announced?
No.
So the first you heard of it was when it was made public?
Yes.
And what have you been hearing from your players? I saw a quote from Roger Goodell saying that they spoke to tens of hundreds of players in putting this together. What have you been hearing from your players since the announcement?
Well, if they've been speaking with tens of hundreds of players to put together this rule, I would look forward to their communications group putting out the list of the tens and hundreds of players who were involved in fashioning this rule. I would be surprised by that.
Which is to suggest that you do not think that would be the opinion of the majority of players? I don't want to put words in your mouth. What are you hearing from players?
Well, what we're hearing from players is, what does this mean? And we took a look at the rule was sent over to us late last night, and players want to know, what does it mean? For example, if you have players who used to serve in the military, and if they are in a home team jurisdiction where the owner has decided that all of the teams are going to stay in the locker room for the pledge. Does this mean for a former member of our military service that he is unable to go out and salute the flag that he loves and to honor the country that he loves? I read this rule that he is prevented from doing that. Our players are interested in things like why would we have meetings between players and owners and players and the union and owners for months on the issue of social justice, and then there is suddenly a star chamber where they come out and announce a rule that some of their own fellow CEOs are apparently not agreeing with. Look, I think at the end of the day, the worst thing about this rule is what it does for the speech and the freedom of people to express themselves. And that speech is the same speech that allows people to protest, but it's the same freedom of speech that allows or protects someone who wants to salute the flag. When you make a broad brush, haphazard rule like that, I don't know whether they appreciated those results, but that is exactly what they have now done.